Yes, so we are back. So Ferrari gets weirder and weirder. Ferrari now blame Enrico Cardile for the woes in the Ferrari F1 team. We've got more rumours. They're intensifying around Christian Horner. And we've got a little bit more on Charles Leclerc and something on Fernando Alonso as well. So yes, this is F1 Grandstand. I'm Tony Craig, and if you're an F1 fan, then you are in the right place. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, smash a like on the video, hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with all the content. And there's a hype thing as well if you fancy doing that. It's all there, should you fancy it. But yeah, Ferrari. Doesn't it get freaking weird? It gets weirder and weirder, honestly. Brand Ferrari. Now, if you have just joined us, by the way, for the live stream, and you're not one of our regulars, this is a more relaxed view where we discuss the news. You get in the chat, just like Gemma is, just like Kyle is, and we can discuss the news together. But it's a bit more relaxed. Grab yourself a cup of tea and let me get into it. So, if you've been following the Ferrari story this week, which I know a lot of you have, the John Elkann comments, the chairman of Ferrari, basically saying the drivers need to focus and shut up, and the engineers are doing this remarkably good job. The pit stops are brilliant because they've been consistent at 2.2 seconds, and they are at the top of the DHL pit stop league. I mean, oh my God. How out of touch. Anyway, it got weirder, didn't it? It got weirder because then there was a report out about Fred Vasseurs' phone call immediately after Sao Paulo, where he's on the phone to John Elkann, where the rumour is that he's basically throwing the drivers under the bus, and John Elkann's comments came off the back of that. Well, today, there's more weirdness, and let's get into it. So, the more weirdness is this. This coming out from F1 Oversteer. Okay, so Ferrari engineers have pinned the 2025 car problems on Enrico Cardile. The root of Ferrari's problems lie in the 2024 season. They appeared closer to ending their title drought than ever, winning 5 races and finishing just 14 points behind McLaren in the constructors. Okay. But in July, the team announced that technical director Enrico Cardile handed in his notice, with Aston Martin confirming a day later they've signed him. He's at Aston Martin now. He's finished his gardening leave from Ferrari, and he's now the Aston Martin CTO, the Chief Technical Officer, and he's working on the chassis over at Aston Martin. We'll talk about it in a minute. So Ferrari basically is saying that the Ferrari were left with Cardile's blueprint, but he wasn't around to see the project through to its completion. Team principal Fred Vasseurs took over as interim technical director, but couldn't devote himself fully to the role. Now, according to Motorsport Italia, Ferrari engineers today have absolved themselves of responsibility by describing the SF25, that's the current car, as Cardile's creation. They're ignoring the fact that aerodynamics chief, who's still there, is Diego Tondi, and the chassis head, Fabio Montecchi, were also part of that design process. So, and this is, why is this happening? It's happening because John Elkann's comments, where he basically was trying to say, the Ferrari engineers are winning. They're winning the championship. The pit stop crew are winning the championship. The people who are letting us down are the drivers and possibly Fred Vasseurs. So all of this pushback on Ferrari over the last couple of days, where anyone who knows anything about Formula One has said, hold on a minute, John. Your engineers have failed on multiple points. 1, the brakes don't work. 2, the car has to lift and coast from about lap 7 or 8 of a Grand Prix. And also, the ride height is issues never been solved. The car was designed to run at a certain ride height that couldn't be sustained throughout the Grand Prix. You tried to solve it with some new suspension. It hasn't worked. That suspension actually has made things worse because that new suspension is non-adjustable. So your engineers haven't done a good job. And that's anyone that knows anything about Formula One has pushed back over the last 48 hours on Elkann's comments saying your engineers are shit. Basically, they're not doing it right. So the engineers have now come together and speaking to Motorsport Italia and said, hey, I know everyone thinks it's our fault. I know everyone thinks the engineers haven't been doing their job, but it's not our fault because Enrico Cardile, this is his car design and we're left with it because he left to go to Aston Martin. It's like children in a playground. It wasn't me, sir. It wasn't me. It was him. It was him. And the Ferrari clown show is just getting ridiculous. I'm going to quickly say in the chat. Hey, Gemma. Oh, 2.3k subs. Yeah, we're doing well. We're building the community nicely. Thank you to each and every one of you. Kyle's in the chat. DT. Yes, DT. We are growing at full speed. Don't forget us when you hit 1 million. Listen, you're the OGs. Anyone who's watching this stream right now, let me tell you. Gemma, Kyle, DT, Will, Triplex, Crackite, honestly, all OGs following this channel. I remember when it was just me and Kyle, or just me and Gemma, or just me and DT on some streams. I will never, ever forget the support from the OGs. And Eric as well, yeah. The OGs will always be the OGs, guys. No doubt about it. The support is greatly appreciated. But we want this community to grow. And I love these live streams because obviously I do the videos every day about the news bulletins, but this is the opportunity every night where as a community we can discuss the stuff, right? This is where we can discuss the news. Hey, yeah, and Gemma, yeah, always here. Proper OG. So I want to discuss this tonight. I want to discuss this Ferrari clown show where they are literally pointing at each other. So it all starts like this. Elkan pointed at the drivers. The whole world pointed at the engineering. Engineering has pointed at Enrico Cardile, who's not there anymore. And everybody else is also saying, hey, what about Fred? So this Ferrari clown show is just getting more and more bizarre. But I want to know what you think about it. Do you think Enrico Cardile is responsible for Ferrari's poor performance in 2025? And that's going to be today's poll. After listening to the start of this, that's going to be today's poll. I'm gonna put a poll. I'm going to do it right now because I'm getting good at this. I'm getting better at this live poll action. So here it is. Is Cardile responsible for Ferrari's poor season in 2025? Right, and now I'm going to do a poll. I want to know what you think. So yeah, and I'm just to remind you, so Enrico Cardile was the CTO at Ferrari. He left in 24. He then had to have gardening leave, okay, where he's paid to sit at home. And he's joined Aston Martin as the chief technical officer. Adrian Newey rates him very, very highly. And if Adrian Newey rates you, I would suspect that's high praise indeed. Enrico Cardile has already been in the press talking about his relationship with Adrian Newey. He's been saying, basically, I'll tell you what he's doing at Aston Martin. Enrico Cardile's gone in and he's working on the chassis and the integration of the Honda engine into the Aston Martin 2026 car. Very highly thought of. But what the engineers at Ferrari basically saying is because he left them in 24, they didn't know how to continue with his blueprint, and that's why the 25 car is a bag of spanners. And the engineers are all saying, hey, not us. That's why tonight's poll is Enrique Cardile responsible for the Ferrari 2025 car? I mean, and let's think about the problems that car's got. Lift and coast, brakes that explode, no good, and ride height that. Because here's the thing about the ride height, and I'm gonna bring in Fernando Alonso at this point. So the car was designed to run an optimum ride height, but unfortunately, because of the plank wear, the car couldn't sustain that ride height for 72 laps or however, for 70 lap Grand Prix, because by the end of it the plank wear was illegal, hence why Lewis Hamilton got disqualified in China. But he did win the sprint race because the car actually performs very well at that ride height, but it's a fundamental design flaw that they couldn't solve. Red Bull had a similar issue that they then solved just after halfway point in the season. McLaren solved it, Mercedes solved it, but the engineers at Ferrari could not solve it. Their new rear suspension didn't solve it. So those are all the issues. But if you're an engineer, even if Enrico Cardile's designed a car, as an engineer, you need to solve it. You need to be able to solve it. And they're basically saying they couldn't solve it, but it's not their fault. So that's tonight's poll. Enrico Cardile, is he responsible for Ferrari's poor performance in 25? He's one of the best CTOs, by the way, that you could have in your team. Adrian Newey, who's now an owner of Aston Martin, to recruit him tells you an awful lot about Enrico Cardile. He's the real deal. He's very, very, very good. Okay, so we're gonna go to the chat. Will's in there. Yes, Will. Will's now. If any, I want you all to meet Will. Will normally turns up for the last 5 minutes of the live stream, but he's a big supporter of the channel. But he normally does 5 minutes. But he's in for the full show tonight. Yeah, I mean, Will, box now, box. Yeah. So DT says Tony needs to get an F1 GRANDSTAND Discord server going. Then we can share all the memes. Yeah. Do you know what? Right, just on that, I promise you this channel will grow. I will get some help at some point. And Discord, social media, all extra content, we will definitely be doing that. So stick with me. A lot of this will be coming for the next season, but I promise you, your support will be rewarded with more content, growth of the channel, more cool stuff, prizes, merch, all loads of cool stuff. I promise I'll get there. I promise you. So, Motorsport fan says, just classic Ferrari. They would just blame their ex-technical staff, CTO in this case, for all their car struggles, when in reality their team is a huge issue as a whole. Exactly. Ferrari's issues are fundamental. It's not one man responsible. It's literally, a lot of people talk about the culture at Ferrari. And it needs to change. Even Fred Vasseur said, you know, we've changed the team principle, we've changed the drivers. One thing we haven't changed is basically the culture at Ferrari. And if they don't change the culture at Ferrari, then right now, Ferrari are fourth in the championship. And you know, do you not remember that interview that Charlesleclerc said when he was talking about the team? He said, yeah, we're the fourth best team. And the engineers went ballistic about it. Well, Ferrari are P4. And Charles Leclerc is the only person to score. He scored 7 podiums in that car this season. I mean, you can't call Charles Leclerc anything other than remarkable what he's done in that car. So yes, it is the engineer's fault. Yes, Fred Vasseur may have the impossible task of trying to bring a team together, changing the culture, backing his drivers, improving the processes within the team, improving the processes on race weekends. He's got his extension of contract, but again, it might just be like this poisoned chalice. Fred Vasseur might be the wrong guy for the job. But yeah, it's a very strange thing. Will says, sorry for going off topic, but what do you think of the amber rain warning, because we've created school football league and it's just ruined our plans? But anyway, I think no one might be fitting. I love playing football in the rain. I know this is an F1 channel, but we're talking about football. I'll play football in the rain, 100%. Play in the rain. When we used to play Sunday League, we used to play when the ground was frozen, right? So yeah, if you're going to play football, come rain or shine, you play. Yeah, now and I like your comment there about Horner. Now, I'm going to come to the Horner story in a moment. We've got some more information from the grid, from the paddock. I spoke to my man Tubby George as well to confirm it. And the rumours are intensifying about where Christian Horner is up to with his team purchase and etc. And I'm going to be coming to that. That's the next story. You don't want to go anywhere. So yeah, that's an interesting one, because linking that to Ferrari, he is the man for the job. That's the weird thing. Like, out of all the people that's available that could possibly go into Ferrari, and you're going to ruffle the feathers, but you need a guy who doesn't care about ruffling feathers. And the one thing we know about Christian Horner is he doesn't care. He'll go in there and he'll sack everybody if he has to. Like, if he's given that power. And that's what Ferrari need. John Elkann is not, I hate to say it, but he's not fit for purpose to make decisions regarding the operation of the Formula One team. He might be fit for purpose for choosing the right leader. He might have got it wrong with Fred, but if he was to get Horner in there, that would be a good choice. But you'd have to give Horner ultimate power. You have to go, hey, you're my guy. I trust your judgment because I know your judgment is better than mine when it comes to a winning Formula One team. And you have carte blanche to do what it takes. Because that is what it takes. It's wholesale change. And you need someone like a Horner who's got broad shoulders, who does not care about being liked. He cares about one thing: winning. That's all he cares about. He is the... And when you think about Ferrari heritage, Enzo Ferrari cared about one thing: racing and winning, to the detriment of his road car business. The road car business for Enzo Ferrari was a means to an end so he could go racing. And that is what it takes. That is what it takes. That mentality where he built road cars in order to raise the funds to go racing. What a mentality. It was almost like Enzo Ferrari's road cars were a bother. It's like, I have to do this in order to go racing. And you know what? It's that mentality that's missing at Ferrari. And I talked about it today in my Oscar Piastri video, and we're going to be talking about that as well. And we're going to be talking about a reaction to Oscar Piastri's podcast on Beyond the Grid, and we're going to get to that in tonight's show also. But I just want to try and get to the end of this Ferrari subject first. And so Ferrari need that man. They need that guy who can come in, ruffle the feathers. Yeah, you're going to annoy some of those engineers that have been there over 20 years from the Schumacher era. But it's been that long since you've won a constructor's title. So obviously it needs to change. And obviously, as an engineer, you've had 20 years to help build a car that's competitive enough, and you haven't done it. Now, these are facts. And all of your pride and all of your philosophy, it's time to change it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So, yeah, if you want wholesale change, you need a guy like Horner. You're not going to get him. You're not going to get him, and you're going to find out why in a minute. But that is one of the solutions. And Will, you're right. Horner would be the right guy. They're not going to get him, though. They're not going to get him. So Motorsport Fan says, I will say Cardile do have parts to be blamed with the car designs, but when it comes to Ferrari's internal management, that place is filled with tons of pressures to deliver. It is filled with tons of pressure to deliver. But I agree with you, Motorsport Fan, but if you hide behind heritage and philosophy and don't look at the bare truth, which is you are getting it wrong, right? And even when you make it binary, are Ferrari wrong or right? Well, there's only one. The scoreboard doesn't lie. Ferrari have been wrong for over 20 years. They need to do something different. And that's a fact. And that might be wholesale change. That's leadership change. The only thing I think you do have there, because this is what Hamilton's getting so much trouble for, because he's gone in and gone, shit, this needs to change. Race day weekends are an absolute farce. Communication between the departments don't work. The speed in which any upgrades come are non-existent. I don't feel I'm getting listened to when we're trying to tell you what we need you to do for the car so we can drive it quicker. It's a total mess. And you got Hamilton, who's won 7 world titles, work in teams that more recently, and this is the other thing you got to remember as well, Hamilton has more recently been winning world titles than Ferrari. He has an idea of what the modern F1 team looks like. So you really should listen to him. He's giving you that advice at the detriment of what you think of him. Now, for a man to do that, because when you look at Fernando Alonso, who went to Ferrari, and Sebastian Vettel, who also went to Ferrari and didn't win world titles, I think both of those drivers, if you spoke to them, wished they had pushed back on the team more in order to win a world title at Ferrari. They didn't, because a lot of drivers, their voice gets muted. They get to Ferrari and it's like, oh, we're at Ferrari. And it's almost like this fear of being able to stand up to them because it's Ferrari. I mean, you're talking about a brand that will, if anyone speaks against, listen, if I was in a position to want to go and buy a Ferrari, especially a special edition, there's no way I'm walking through the door now after all the content I've done this week on Ferrari. They're like that. They will, if anyone speaks against the brand, you're on a blacklist. They would never let me do a car review by Ferrari. Like, hey, that's Tony Craig. No way does he walk in the building. And that's Ferrari. Because they don't want truth. They want brand, right? And that's what it is. So when people like Lewis Hamilton, who are trying to, for the betterment of the team, are getting thrown under the bus as a troublemaker, it's ridiculous. So what do? Now they're pointing the finger at Enrico, Cardile, and get involved in the poll. Yes or no? Is he responsible? Kyle says, hire Gunther. Ferrari might not get better, but the sound bites will be more entertaining. We could have been a bunch of rock stars, but now we look like a bunch of wankers. Do you know what, Gunther, actually, funny you mention Gunther Steiner. He was in the press today talking about Ferrari. He did choose his words quite politically. He said John Elkann basically was wrong to point the finger at the drivers, okay? But he did then say, but he does own the company. He is the boss. He's entitled to say what he wants. However, those comments were misguided and he was basically wrong. Now, Gunther's got a relationship with Ferrari, hasn't he? Because when he was the team principal at Haas, they were supplying him with engines. So he knows Ferrari really well. But Gunther did say they should listen to Lewis Hamilton. Ralf Schumacher said they should listen to Lewis Hamilton. Juan Pablo Montoya, in the press today, said Ferrari's biggest mistake is they are not listening to Lewis Hamilton. And basically, Lewis has all the support. Rightly so, because Ferrari's a mess. It's a clown show. Now, like I said, I'm not going to get a Ferrari very soon. We're going to need this channel to do a lot better before we're in a position to get one of those. Whether they sell me one in the future, who knows? But the point is, I will always tell the truth. Lewis Hamilton tells the truth. And I think, you know, Ferrari pointing the finger at Enrico Cardile is pretty ridiculous. Yeah, and Motorsport Fan says, don't forget that Cardile's developed quite a number of pretty good and competitive cars at Ferrari, but we just know Ferrari as a team have tons of factors that lead them. So yeah, it's a team dynamic. I think it's philosophy. Kyle says, I learned English in a pub, not in a school. Yeah, it's funny. I tell you, Gunther Steiner is the most hilarious person, and I miss him on Drive to Survive. Would I have him running my F1 team? Maybe not. Maybe not. But maybe he wants a job at Ferrari. But anyway, I'm going to leave the Ferrari story there. That is the big news. They're now, all the engineers are basically pointing the finger at Enrico Cardile. Tell me if you think he is to blame. Now, I'm going to move it on. So I promised you something on Christian Horner. So Christian Horner, what are we saying about Christian Horner? Well, Christian Horner, as we know, doesn't have a job in Formula One, but he does have a large amount of backing. It's rumoured to be £1.5 billion, which is about $2 billion, to invest in either a full outright purchase of a Formula One team, part purchase or a stake in a Formula One team, or the wild card is there's one FIA license up for grabs left under the current regulations. There's room for one more new team. And that's maybe another option for Horner, setting up Horner Racing. Now, this is a story that's come out today. So Christian Horner, basically, there's been rumours. So journalist John Jackson was at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, hanging out in the paddock. And I've confirmed this with my guy in the paddock, Tubby George. And what he said is, the whispers in the paddock suggest Alpine are lining up Christian Horner as team principal for 2027. Now, we've been talking about this for ages, but apparently, I think it was Kyle yesterday that said AI is saying that there's a 90% chance that Horner will be taking control of Alpine. And this story's coming out of F1 Oversteer. But Jackson was speaking on TalkSport's YouTube channel about Horner's future. And he said, one whisper I heard in the paddock this weekend in Sao Paulo is that Christian Horner will be taking over as team principal in some kind of capacity. I guess buyout, but I think the team of Alpine's for sale in 2027. Now, why is this a continuation of what we've already been talking about? As you know, I did a full video explaining Christian Horner's 1.5 billion F1 team. And in that video, you'll find it on the channel. It's had quite a lot of traction. And I broke down the Horner situation. and this is the, I've still got the graphic here. These are the Horner options that we talked about. Now, right now, we're talking about Alpine. Okay. And when I did that video, which is, it's going back nearly 2 weeks ago, so things have changed. So at that time, I gave Horner a 30 to 35% chance of becoming owner at Alpine, controlling stake. Now, I talked about the problems because Alpine is basically, it's a funny ownership model. There's one guy who owns 25% of the Alpine racing team, and Renault own the rest. Now, the situation this year at Alpine was, at the beginning of the year, Renault got into financial difficulties. Their share prices went down by 20%. They had to cancel their engine program, and the team was a mess, right? No team principal. Flavio Briatore had to step in because he's a sort of a special advisor to Renault and Alpine, because Flavio Briatore back in the 90s used to run Benetton, and Renault won world championships as team principal. You know, he's a real divisive figure, but he's very, very good friends with Christian Horner. Anyway, I gave it a 35% chance that Horner would take control of Alpine. I said Williams was a possibility also, and I said Horner Racing, and I split those probably equal terms each. Now, with what's happening now at Alpine, so this guy who owned 25% stake in the Alpine race team, he was considering selling his stake for around £300 million at the beginning of the year. He still wanted to do it, but there wasn't really any takers at that point that were able to do the deal. Then, further on through the season, Renault decided, oh, well, maybe we'll look at a complete wholesale of our Formula One team. And that was coming in, oh, funny this, £1.5 billion, which happens to be the rumoured funding that Christian Horner now has as backing behind him to come back into Formula One. And you've got to remember, this year there's been the phenomenal growth in Formula One, especially over in the States. And it's never been a better time to be in the F1 business. Team valuations have been going up and up and up. And yes, DT, welcome to all the new viewers who are joining the stream. Thank you so much. Get involved in the chat. You are all very welcome. They're a nice bunch. Have your say. Get in the chat. Say hello if you're watching right now. Don't forget to smash a like on the video. So Christian Horner is basically, he's got a load of money, but the valuations of teams are going up and up and up and up because never a better time to be in the F1 business. How can we quantify that? Well, Toto Wolff has just sold 5% stake in Mercedes Racing for 300 million quid, basically giving them a valuation of $6 billion. So we can see the valuations of Formula One teams are going up and up and up. So Alpine, Renault, not necessarily in a major rush to sell their shares. They're going, oh, hang on a minute. We've done a deal with Mercedes for the power unit for 2026. We still have a problem that our current team is a bit of a shambles with a worse place, with the worst team on the grid for sure. But there's no development on 25 cars. Concentrated all their time on the 26 car, and because it's a major regulation change, every team has this almost like this that they're dreaming of rainbows and unicorns. Where they think, hey, it's a brand new regulation. If we've interpreted these regulations optimally, we could go from last place to a mid-table team. If we do that at the beginning of 26, our valuation's going to go up. So if we're valued at £1.5 billion, $2 billion right now, we could be 2.5, 3 billion. So now they've got the EBGBs about selling the team. So we thought that because of that, the rumours were that Alpine and Renault were just going to wait. Well, they were just going to wait. Not long, but Christian Horner's got garden leave. Anyway, things have progressed. Flavio Briatore, who is good friends with Horner, who is currently running the Alpine team. And you've got to remember, when I say good friends with Christian Horner, I mean good friends with Christian Horner. In 2005, Flavio Briatore was instrumental in getting Christian Horner his job as team principal at Red Bull. Horner was an unknown, right? coming to the Formula One grid, taking a top job with a well-funded Red Bull team. And it was Flavio Briatore who championed him in. And he was right, because Horner then had all that success. He built a team from basically nothing into a championship winning team. Horner has to get credit for that. So that's what Alpine need. They need somebody to go in and run the team. So how's that progressed? The answer is, after all of that, yes, it has progressed. Horner and Flavio Briatore, I think, are at a point, and according to Tubby George, that there is basically a verbal agreement that they're going to get this deal done. Kyle pointed it out yesterday. He said, and this is what I thought was interesting. I found this out today, but yesterday Kyle was in the chat and he said, AI says Horner, there's a 90% chance that Horner will be buying a stake or the entire team over at Alpine. And what's funny is, as this news comes out today, that it's all stacking up to be true. So yes. So now the reason why I've got these on the screen is because I want to give you my new sort of mathematical chance. I'd say it's an 80% chance that he is going to take control of Alpine. 85% chance. The thing that is unclear about Horner taking over at Alpine is, will he be buying a smaller stake for a few hundred million, or will he be buying the whole team? Because if he buys a smaller stake, he has the slight hurdle or issue to deal with, which is he needs to make friends with Renault. Because if you remember when Renault was flying Red Bull with engines, he basically slagged Renault off completely. He said basically the engines were an absolute bag of spanners. They were terrible. The worst engines ever seen. They're an embarrassment. And it was a very nasty fallout. But, you know, if Renault do retain a stake, which I think they would want to, because the F1 business is booming, they'll just have to shake hands and get past it, and I think they will. So that's what I think's happening with the Horner story. The whispers on the paddock are getting louder. So it's looking the most likely place for him is going to be the Alpine team. Plus the fact that their headquarters in Silverstone is quite near his house. Which is quite convenient. So yeah. And Triplex says, yeah, you should ask the AI again now. Exactly. If anyone's buying a computer, ask ChatGPT what the current percentage chances that Horner will take control of Alpine. It was 90% yesterday. But I do think he could do a good job there. He's going to be stuck with Franco Colapinto next year. And Pierre Gasly. But Pierre Gasly, even though they have a weird relationship, because don't forget, Horner really treated Pierre Gasly pretty badly back in 2019, I think it was, where he gave him 2 races. He promoted him from the Racing Bulls car, put him into the Red Bull car for 2 races and dropped him. But Pierre Gasly's a much better driver now than he was then. He's proven that. He's overperformed in the Alpine this season, and no one can deny that. So that is where we're up to with Christian Horner. Now, excuse me, I just want to catch you up on today's earlier story, which was reacting to Oscar Piastri's Beyond the Grid podcast. So just very quickly, it was a fascinating podcast where Oscar Piastri was talking as openly as he could about what's been going on at McLaren, what's been happening for him behind the scenes. He was talking, I'm going to try and paraphrase it, because if you want to go and watch that video, it's available for you anyway right now. And it's basically, you know, an interesting watch. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on it. So Oscar Piastri was talking about, he basically was talking about Monza. When he was asked about Baku, what happened in Baku, because that was really his worst Grand Prix weekend in his 3 seasons in Formula One, and it was, and he knows it was, and he mentioned, well, Baku was the Grand Prix immediately after Monza, and obviously, and he let slip about the pit stop incident, and he said that was difficult for him, and it was, because all of that issue in Monza is contentious. If you're the neutral, you feel that Oscar Piastri shouldn't have had to give that place back to Lando Norris because of the pit stop error when Lando Norris told Oscar to pit first to keep in front of Leclerc, and then Norris pits second, and then they have a tyre gun issue, which means a slow pit stop. He comes out, loses track position to Piastri, and then Piastri's forced to give him that position back. A lot of people felt that was unfair. They shouldn't have done that. Piastri was also the championship leader at the time. It wasn't a team decision to hold Norris in there to allow Piastri to undercut. It was just really a racing incident. So it really split the room. But anyway, that was the decision on track. And then it messed Piastri up. He felt it was unfair. He had to bite his tongue. And then in Baku, we saw all these errors. He crashed in Q3. He said they're on the C6 tyres, which Piastri didn't really get along with. And then he crashed in the Grand Prix after a jump in the start. Then he stalled. Then the anti-stall kicked in. He went from P9 to the back of the grid and then crashed, I think, turn 4 or 5. Wrote out of the Grand Prix, DNF'd. It was a terrible weekend for him. And from that point, we've seen Oscar Piastri really not be competitive compared to Lando Norris. Lando Norris has just been going from strength to strength. And to be fair to Lando, he's been driving flawlessly over the last few Grand Prix. So Oscar Piastri's had all this mental game going on. But the takeaway from the earlier video was that I understand why Oscar Piastri has this mental game, because in moments where Andrea Stella could have fought for his driver, he hasn't done it. And the moments I picked out were in Silverstone, where Piastri got the 10-second penalty after the restart for, well, I think it was basically for dangerous driving. It wasn't. He was just basically braking hard, holding up the snake before the restart because he's in P1. Now, he got a 10-second penalty. And what was hard was, and then Lando Norris, by the way, because of that 10-second penalty, wins the race. And I think it's hard for Piastri because he had Andrea Stella saying, yeah, it's a harsh penalty, not sure he deserved it, really harsh. Other drivers have done the same thing throughout, the season, really harsh. But did he appeal? No. He didn't go and fight for his driver. Regardless of the outcome of the appeal, it's the fact he didn't even bother to fight back. Now, I'll use Christian Horner as an example. Can you imagine him ever not fighting back on a decision that doesn't go Max Verstappen's way when he was at Red Bull? He would have fought tooth and nail. He appealed everything because he knows that when you're a driver, you fight for every 100th of a second. So when there's a situation off the racetrack, as a team principal, you have to fight for every single thing. If you want to, run a penalty against us, then you have to take it out of my talons. You got to fight. And his team, Andrea Stella, has not done that for him. He didn't do it for him in Silverstone, where Piastri himself after the race was very vocal, said, it wasn't fair, I don't agree with the penalty, and he's the only one fighting his corner. And Andrea Stella said, no, we're going to take it on the chin. And then in Sao Paulo, again, it's a contentious penalty. And what happens after the race? Andrea Stella says, well, yeah, we do think it's a harsh penalty. It was a restart. He went for the gap. And then there was obviously a connection with Kimi Antonelli, but it was a restart. There was a gap. It's contentious. And Andrea Stella said, well, yeah, I do think Kimi Antonelli was also to blame. It wasn't solely Piastri's fault, so we don't think the penalty we think it's harsh. But then he said, but we'll take it on the chin. And he didn't appeal that either. He didn't fight for his driver then. I know Oscar Piastri served the penalty during the race, but that's not the point. Fighting for your driver to be vindicated and just be told, you're right, we shouldn't have given you that penalty, is quite often enough. But when Andrea Stella has not been throwing punches for Piastri, I can understand why Piastri's probably thinking, hey, what the is going on? Because Piastri, after the debacle in Monza, where he gave the place back, even on the team radio when he said, I don't think this is right, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then after the Grand Prix, because of the pushback to McLaren saying, we don't think you should have done that, McLaren, that team order wasn't fair on Piastri. Piastri then comes out and defends the team, right? And says, no, it's okay. It was the right thing to do. I'm more worried about the pit crew member who had the jammed tyre gun. Imagine how he's feeling. Imagine how he would feel if Lando Norris lost that position because of him. fighting for his team because he knows, and he said it at the time, I need the team to be behind me for me to win the World Championship. So we've seen Piastri at every level, even if he feels there's an injustice against him, fight for his team. And he hasn't had it in return from his higher up, his team principal. And when those opportunities were there, did they fight for him? No, they did not. They didn't. And Singapore, where there's a team order, which is the one team order is you guys can race all you want, but don't touch each other. Piastri's in P3, Lando's in P5. It's the race start, turn 1. Lando, gunning it, goes for a gap, and to avoid Max Verstappen, hits his teammate, takes position on track to Oscar Piastri. Piastri's probably thinking, hey, here's an opportunity for you to make a call here. The team orders were not to touch each other. He did. He's got through. I didn't really cause much of a defence in that moment because I don't want to take us both out. And then the on-track decision was, no, Lando gets to keep that position. Then after the Grand Prix, they say, actually, Lando, he was wrong to do that. He's been sanctioned by the team internally, right? We put sanctions on him, which was basically who gets to choose who goes out in Q3 at the next Grand Prix. So that's no good for Oscar Piastri, is it? Because when Oscar Piastri, when there was an issue with the tyre gun, you made the on-track decision to switch him around. Then in Singapore, you didn't do that. Yet after the Grand Prix said, yeah, actually, Lando shouldn't have done that. So, and then Oscar Piastri still toes the party line. So really, in the on the grid podcast, for me, I think he handled it with real grace. You could tell what he's been dealing with mentally. He still toes the party line. But yeah, I think there's some sort of confirmation bias at McLaren, whether they mean to do it or not, where Lando is in their subconscious is the person they would actually prefer to be the world driver champion, and also represent their brand. They probably think it's better for, will they sell more cars with Lando being the driver's champion? You know, will they get more sponsorship? Is it better for the team if it's him, even if it's in their subconscious? And I think if you're interested in what I had to say about all of that, go and watch the earlier video. It's on the channel. It's the one from earlier today, because I'll be very interested to see what you think about it and get in the chat. But yeah, so I'm going to go back to the chat. Kyle says, he did ask the AI, 90% Horner goes to Alpine, 10% he goes to Ferrari. See, that's the thing, right? So I'll leave that with you on the Piastri front. You can comment on the earlier video, you can comment on this video, and we can discuss it. But it was Beyond the Grid podcast if you want to watch it and see what you felt joining up the dots. But I'm going to go back to the chat. So yeah, my earlier subject about where Horner's going to go. 10% he goes to Ferrari. The thing is, there's a 90% chance Ferrari need him. But what they'd have to convince Horner of to go to Ferrari is delay your plans of being a team owner. Give us a couple of years. We'll pay you an obscene amount of money. Come and sort the team out. I don't think he's going to do it. Horner, it could be even with Ferrari. Unless he gets shares, I don't think he's going to do it. So Kyle says, AI gives Alpine a 60% chance of getting a podium finish in 26, mainly because of the Mercedes power unit. I would say that's fair. I think Alpine will get a podium finish in 26. I think it's going to be better and more competitive than it is in 25. Triplet says McLaren needs to either get rid of Zach or Andre. The same person needs to be both the CEO and team principal. It especially doesn't work for McLaren because they're both trying to be vocal. You know, Zach Brown, funny you should say that, Triplets, because Zach Brown was saying that the role of team principal to the press commitments are so much that he needed to have a team principal. So as CEO, he's able to meet the press commitments. I think these team principals can be talking too much, to be honest. You know, I actually think you need to concentrate on what's going on the track. If it was me, I wouldn't give a shit about media day. I wouldn't give a shit about doing the media. I would be more like Kimi Räikkönen. If I have to go and do media, it'd be like, so Kimi, Did you think you had a problematic race today? Anything you can improve? Yes. Okay. Like, I'm not sure. I understand the PR is so important with sponsors and everything else, but I think you're right, Triple X. Other people manage to do both, don't they? Toto Wolff is CEO and team principal, and he seems to do okay. You know, so yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think the demands have got more because of the show, the Formula One show, and I think the show sometimes, as much as it's needed to help bring eyeballs to the sport, like, let's not forget what we're here to do. We're here to win races, right? We're here to win. If you're winning, that's all that matters. You know, all of this, the PR offensive gets right on my nerves, if I'm honest. Right on my nerves. Yeah, and DT says, yeah, Triple X, I'm inclined to agree. People are agreeing with their Triple X. And by the way, if you're watching the stream, thank you so much for joining us. Please smash a like on the video. Make sure you've hit the bell notification. I've got notifications on, so you never miss any of our content from the breaking news stories during the day, or our live streams, or our watch-alongs. Really greatly appreciate it. Thank you for everybody's support. So, and get in the chat as well. Trust me, I was like this whenever I used to watch other people's stuff. I'd watch the streams and I'd enjoy it, but I'd be it's quite, you have to be quite brave to get in the chat and get involved in the community. But trust me, this community in F1 Grandstand are great. So if you're watching and you want to get more involved and interactive, get in the chat. Say hello. They're a really, really good bunch of people. You can ask me questions, you can ask them questions, but make sure you do get in the chat. It's there for you, okay? So Kyle says, most of the McLaren fans I know think Zach Brown is the principal. Well, yeah, I mean, he was for a number of years, wasn't he? Andrea Stella's getting more vocal, but like I said about the Oscar Piastri situation, if you want to make your mark as team principal, you can't be soft, right? I want my team principal as my brother in arms, right? If I'm a driver, I want you to fight for me even when I'm wrong, right? Like we would do for our friends. You know, I would fight for my family and friends even when they're wrong. And after we've finished it and whatever trouble he's got us in, I'd be like, dude, what the hell was that? But loyalty, like you got to be comrades. Formula One, it's war. It's all of the, you know, you're there to win, and there's only a few people left in the paddock who really have that. Like, you want your team principal to back you even when you're wrong, and that's why I always come back to Horner with this, because he would back you. He will go down with you even if you are wrong, and that is what I would want from Andrea Stella if I'm Oscar Piastri, especially if I am always Team McLaren, even if I think internally decisions have been made where where there's been injustice against me, and I still, Team McLaren, I still protect the brand. I still protect the team. I'm even protecting the guy with the tyre gun who possibly makes a mistake that costs Lando Norris over 2.5 seconds in a Grand Prix. I'm even protecting him. I'm protecting everyone from the dinner lady to the merch guy to the team principal. And I think if you're team principal, you want to make a name for yourself, that is what you need to. And yes, DT, you're absolutely right. Our community do not bite. So if you are watching, if it's not tonight, maybe it's tomorrow. But when you're ready, get in the chat, ask questions and get involved. That's what the chat is there for. So yeah, anyway, if you haven't seen that Oscar Piastri video from Elise, please watch it after the live stream. I'm going to just quickly go to the poll because I've noticed I always forget to resolve the poll. I'm not going to forget to do it tonight. So the poll was, is Enrico Cardile responsible for Ferrari's poor season of 2025? Overwhelmingly, you've said 80% of you have said no, absolutely not. So that report that's been coming out of Italy from Motorsport Italia, saying that the engineers are blaming Enrico Cardile. Seriously, the clown show at Ferrari will continue. I promise you that. And I am really looking forward to press day next Thursday at the Vegas Grand Prix, because honestly, Charlesleclerc and Lewis Hamilton are gonna have to answer some very, very awkward questions, aren't they? How are they going to handle it? I'm here for it. And don't forget, actually, for the Vegas Grand Prix, set your reminders for the watch-alongs All of the sessions will stream live with live timings, and we can enjoy the watch alongs together as well, and we can discuss the action as it happens. But only one thing left to say. Please do smash a like on the video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with all the content. And I just want to thank every one of you for getting involved and supporting this channel. DT, Kyle, Triplex, Gemma, Will. Who else has been in there tonight? Who else has been in? I hope I've not missed any, but every one of you has been watching and involved tonight. Thank you as always. It means the world to me how well this channel is building and growing, and I just want to make the community create a great space for the community to have a good time and enjoy Formula One together. So thank you very much again. I will be back tomorrow. Watch out for breaking news. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow for for F1 Friday Night Live, baby. You don't want to miss it. It's 7:30. F1 Friday Night Live. It's my favourite one to do because we talk about all the news and everything that's going on for the whole week. It's more relaxed. Get yourself a beer. Get yourself a glass of wine. We'll all chill and we can all discuss this week's news. And there's been lots of it. It's been madness. So I will see you all tomorrow night at 7:30. Thanks again. Thanks so much. Ta-ta.